This is kind of a weird one for me because I actually sat on the sketch of this drawing for a while. And you can see I'm trying to kind of rework the bottom half of the character to give it a more interesting dynamic pose because that was one of the main things about this sketch is I liked the character design, wasn't really happy with the pose, and ultimately here all I did was really just kind of widen the stance and try to give it a bit of depth so that it's more at a profile instead of a sideways facing person just standing there. But after that, it it becomes a little interesting. I play with some things that I don't normally do. You'll see in a bit later. But this character, the concept started, I wanted to do kind of a Mulan type character. And so I was researching a little bit of Chinese armor. There's a little bit of Japanese influence in there. And I kind of blended that style with a more European aesthetic. I have what these grotesque looking goblinoid faces that make up the pauldrons and the breastplate, and ultimately the all of the armor is made up of basically goblins that look like they are wrapped around this character and like restraining her, but they are actually the armor. And the idea is that it's a cursed armor that she cannot remove, and she hears the voices of this horde of goblins as they bicker and talk to her and try to get her to do what they want. But ultimately, they protect her. And I kind of have this idea that maybe she can summon them off of the armor and they become actual goblins that will help her in battle or something. That's not fully fleshed out. I just really kind of liked this almost Halloween aesthetic. These bat-like fingers and the face on the belt there holding the cloth, which I ultimately try to make more uniform with the rest of the armor. But the real thing that I really wanted to highlight was the line work. I decided to do heavier shadows with the inking to make it more like a comic book, like potentially like a black and white comic. And I didn't put a whole lot of thought into coloring it while I was doing the inking. So I started thinking, well, what if I just do this? Spoiler, I don't do this, but what if I just try to make this just a line work picture that I can be happy with that being the finished product? And I do that to a certain extent until I just ultimately want to color it. And takes me a bit to get there. This is mostly line work getting through, and as you can see, I have to re-sketch in the faces here on the knee pads. I ultimately end up being pretty happy with those. I've been really trying to do this thing where you treat line work more as a sketch and be less precise with it. I really am liking the way that the style kind of comes out. This, I keep wanting to say messy and unpolished, but it really isn't messy. It's just less precise and it's comfortable. It makes me less stressed, which I think is kind of important when doing a creative project like this. It makes me happier with the process and ultimately makes me happier with the final result. So I guess let me know what you think about that. I have been enjoying what it looks like, but there it is. I finished the line work, and here I start playing with things a little bit. Like I put this shadow kind of as the line work, just expanding it into this faded aura here, and then I started painting it roughly with a loose texture brush, and this is all just playing around. In my head, I was like, I'm just going to do this for fun, and then I'll go back and color it normally. And then I kind of get to this point here, and I start thinking, I actually really kind of like that, but when I take out the background, then the transparency is obvious. So what if I go in and kind of block out the form in white, and then the color is this kind of like marker effect where there's still a lot of white showing. And as you can see, I clean it up. This is all experimental, so I'm not entirely sure what all I'm doing. So I'm playing with all the different layers, and I'm going in and making some things cleaner and some things not cleaner. I really don't know what color to make everything. because I didn't expect this to be the final result, and I ultimately end up coming up with something very close to this. I just try to bring in more of those yellows, and I try to make it so that it is more of a cohesive piece color-wise, and then I come in and do this soft light blue on the left side, or the character's right side, but our left side. And I start thinking, okay, this looks like a kind of a Chrono Trigger aesthetic here that I really like. And then I have this background that kind of reminds me of like a Cowboy Bebop title screen. I don't know. So I really like this. And then so that's about the end result there. This is what I kind of came up with. And then I looked at it a bit more and I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I need more definition in the line work. So I actually, before recording this, came back and put a bit more detail just into the line work. And what I did was I saved the character design as one file, so at full size, which is a really big. I like to work with a really big size. And then I made a separate file for the background, so I had to ultimately resize the character and try to fit it. I think I did a good job on that. So here's the finished product. I hope you like it. I had a lot of fun doing this one. Thanks.